Hi folks, welcome to today's Bobcast. I'm Bob Benny.
I'm Jesse Thompson.
We're with Bob Benny Wealth Management right here in Lincoln, Nebraska, and the topic of today's Bobcast is what, Jess?
What do we think of Dave Ramsey?
Yeah, what do we think of Dave Ramsey's advice? And so there's some things we think about of Dave Ramsey that he's really good at giving good advice, and there's some that you really shouldn't listen to at all.
And it kind of just depends what lane it is. When it comes to certain things like just general financial principles, budgeting, paying off debt, tithing, things like that, Dave Ramsey is great. We love his methods. We love how he's able to communicate those things in a very simple, straightforward way. He has lots of resources on his website for people who are just starting out, trying to get established financially. That is wonderful, free things.
And great strategies to help people get out of debt. And he has books, he has classes that are held at churches or other places, but oftentimes at churches, called Financial Peace University. I've attended their class before. It's the debt part of it is fantastic. The retirement planning and the investment advice leaves a lot to be desired, and so that's what we wanted to kind of put our 2 cents worth in today.
Yeah, there's just a few things that we kind of want to caution people on. It's those things, and then there's a couple of other things too.
Yeah. One thing though that I want to reemphasize on the good that I love about Dave Ramsey, besides the strategies for getting out of debt, is he really explains a lot about the importance of tithing for believers.
Even while they're getting out of debt.
Even while they're getting out of debt, and how getting your mind straight about whose money this is that you have. It's really God's money. You're just being a steward of it. And if you give your first fruits or the first bills you pay or whatever, the first checks you write for the month are to do your 10% tithe to the church, that puts your head right around the money. And it actually, you end up being blessed. I've been blessed. You've been blessed from tithing. And so I want to say that one good thing, and thank you, Dave Ramsey, for, if you're watching, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave, for emphasizing tithing.
So on the things to caution about Dave.
Yeah. Things we want to kind of caution you about, Dave.
First off, Dave is not a licensed financial advisor.
And as far as we know, he
doesn't have any
been.
securities licenses. He's not a certified financial planner. He's not a certified public accountant, any of those things. So we want to kind of caution you on that. A couple of things too. On his website, he has a trusted services page where you can get connected with professionals like insurance people, financial advisors, tax people, things like that.
That he's endorsing.
That he's endorsing, that you would assume from that are people who are like vetted by Dave Ramsey. That's not really what it is. It's people who paid money to get on the list and filled out a questionnaire. That's all it is, which is
dishonest.
A little misleading. Yeah.
It's not little, it's very. If you have something like that on your website, you should say, these people have paid me so that I recommend them to you on the guy's website. He doesn't.
It might be somewhere in the small print, but it's not obvious. So
yeah.
Anyway. I want to caution you on that. And then also there's another thing is that he recommends that everybody have a will, which we recommend that everybody have an estate plan, but a will is really not much of an estate plan. All it is a letter to the probate court. If you have a will, it means that your loved ones are going through the probate process. They're having to pay a lawyer. They're having to go through a long, drawn-out, annoying court process in order to get your stuff, where a true estate plan is a revocable living trust that can bypass all of that if that's set up correctly. And we have a lot of other videos on that on our YouTube page that you can easily find of why we prefer revocable living trusts over wills and think that they're the best thing for people.
Because the AARP, for instance, states that probate costs about 5 to 8, eats up about 5 to 8% of an estate. And that's mostly going to the court process and to lawyers. And so we say, why not just disinherit the lawyers by having a revocable living trust, which can be done pretty economically. So then now let's talk about Dave Ramsey's retirement income planning, and investment advice.
Yeah, so about a year ago, there was a clip from the Ramsey show that went viral where a caller called in and was talking about, he was asking Dave about something called the 4% rule, which, if you're not familiar, the 4% rule is kind of a rule of thumb in retirement income planning that says that a 4% annual withdrawal rate out of your retirement milk cow, like we like to call it, or retirement nest egg, is a safe withdrawal rate that should be able to be sustained throughout someone's entire retirement, a 30-year retirement.
It's a pretty, it's very conservative, pretty conservative withdrawal rate. It's based on a 50% stock, 50% bond portfolio, and doesn't take into consideration anything like longevity or health or inflation or things like that. And so Dave Ramsey,
it's kind of like a simplified,
oversimplified
just rule of thumb.
Yeah.
This 4% withdrawal rate. And
go ahead about what happened on his show.
And so on the show, the caller brings that up to Dave and references somewhere on another show from another one of Dave's co-hosts, George, where George is talking about that 4% rule and saying, oh, well, now it's really closer to 3.5%, depending on how you're invested, blah, blah, blah. And Dave gets really riled up and he says, that's basically bullcrap, and you should be able to easily take out 8% per year from your portfolio, and that whatever you're invested in, you should be able to invest in a mutual fund that gets you 12% per year for an average rate of return.
Well, both of those statements are false. If you are over exaggerating your expectations, if you have an expectation of a mutual fund earning you an average of 12% per year, you just are. Maybe you might be pleasantly surprised and have an average for a certain period of years of something like that. But over the long haul, the market itself, the stock market index of the S&P 500 over a long period of time, it's around 10%. And the reason we say that that's an exaggeration is because only less than 20% of the mutual funds actually outperform the S&P 500 index. Mm-hmm. And so 12% is an exaggeration, and certainly an 8% withdrawal is an exaggeration too.
And basically how he explains it is he says, okay, if you can get a 12% return on your mutual fund investment and you're taking out 8%, you're accounting for a 4% inflation rate, that equals 8 plus 4 equals 12%, and you should be fine. You should never draw down your portfolio to zero.
But the problem is it doesn't get 12% every year. It's a 12%
it's
average.
Again, that's another very oversimplified retirement income planning strategy, and it's not going to work.
No, because
you're going to have about a 50-50 chance that you're not going to run out of money if you do that.
At the best. Because the way you get a 10%, let's say a 10% average, which is more realistic and a good expectation, the way you get that is some years you get 10, some years you get 20, but some years your account goes down by 20 or 30%. Well, if your account goes down in a year by 20 or 30%, and you're taking an 8% out of it, you're going to get killed. And so that's why it's not simple math of 12% minus 4% inflation, take an 8% withdrawal rate. That it just doesn't work. I've been doing this for 30 years, Jess, and thank goodness I've never given anybody any kind of retirement planning and income planning advice to take 7 or 8% out of their retirement milk cow, or I'd have a lot of broke people now, broke retired old people.
So just kind of slapping a rate of return expectation, or not a rate of return expectation, but a safe withdrawal rate onto somebody's retirement, you can't just do that broadly for everybody. It doesn't work, whether it's 4% or 8%. The 4% rule was basically established. We'll go into it on a different video of where that came from. But basically why that's so conservative is that was taking a bunch of different historical periods of the worst times in the stock market, from like the early 1900s up to the 1990s, and saying if you would have retired at the beginning of this terrible time, this bear market, you could have taken 4% out every year and still been okay. So that's why they use that 4% rule, just to be extra safe. But really what it comes down to is that figuring out how much money you can safely take out of your portfolio is very nuanced, and it depends on several things. It depends on exactly how you're invested and what the standard deviation is, basically how up or down the returns of your retirement portfolio can be. And it also depends on what your life expectancy is, and that's kind of hard to gauge because you don't really know when you're going to die.
It's more of an individualized thing. You can't just make a rule of thumb number like 4% or 8% or 9% or whatever.
It's more of that's more of a starting place, right, I think, for people who are just guesstimating.
And retirement income planning and investing, it's kind of it's a moving target, and we don't just, with our customers, the people that we've dealt with, I've never just set up a plan and said good luck to you and never seen them again. We meet with them, every year or more often, or maybe slightly less often, but not too much slightly than every year, to revisit their situation, revisit their investments, their goals, their family situation, their health situation, that sort of thing, and see if there needs to be any kind of adjustments made. And so, anyway, we're not very keen on Dave Ramsey's retirement planning advice, income planning advice, or his investment advice. He doesn't really know what he's doing there, but he's really great on the debt stuff and getting out of debt, strategies to get out of debt, and his great recommendation for tithing.
And so we just also want to remind you that if you need retirement income planning advice or investment advice, to not take your advice from YouTube, but to take your advice from somebody who is licensed, preferably a certified financial planner. We're both certified financial planners, and we would be happy to help you.
Yeah. So what do they do if they like the video?
You can press like if you like the video.
Yeah.
And subscribe so that you get notified when we have new weekly podcasts.
Yeah. So
thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for joining us, and hope you have a blessed day.